Hi, this is Judith Cassel-Mamet, and I'd like to share a flip through of the journal that I just completed after going to Barcelona and the Costa Brava with students for a wonderful sketching trip. We arrived October 1st and stayed for about 12 days and got in right in the middle of the Catalonian separatist movement. I was so moved by all the flags and the colors and that they all meant something different that I attached these fibers. This is yellow rat tail and some silk pieces with an antique button. I attached it to the spine, and I also did that on the front here, and that's gesso. I was working on a handbook that starts off looking like this. Of course, this is a blue background. I used a green one. I like these handbooks for the size and the portability, and it has a little envelope in the back. But as you'll see, I worked a lot on separate paper that I also attached after I got back to my studio. I prepare pages before I leave, including this old map that I found in a vintage atlas. And I put in the first page, which was the intended trip, Denver to Spain and then Morocco, but Morocco got canceled. And always before a big trip to Europe for me, my head is full of, silly concerns or things that I'm staying awake about. So I put those things down. And in this case, I decided to do what I call an OIV list, which is underneath this little tab. Just write it and then cover it up and move on. I always take a little time to record what I'm bringing and think about packing, and I thought this was pretty funny this time around. I love colors and textures and all that, but I ended up bringing primarily black, gray, and white clothing, and the exception was that scarf. So I thought that would be funny to record that. And then the day of the trip is always a bit of a swirl also. So my brain was going in a bunch of different directions. I was saying goodbye to my son who had a broken leg and he was relocating to DC. We finally got off. I was traveling with my friend Margot, who was coming to attend the sketchbook workshop, and we landed in Frankfurt to change planes, and it just felt like, phew, finally, we're on our way. And this was the first spread. This background aqua color I had put on the pages before leaving. And the very first night there was a woman standing on a balcony, and it was very dark behind her at exactly 10 p.m., banging on a pot. We had no idea what that was. Come to find out, it was a form of resistance, and it ended at exactly 10:15, and that actually happened a few nights. But that was the first time I was recording that flag, the Catalonian independence flag, and this flag that says C. And there were a lot of those different colors all over Barcelona. This was a page I had prepared before going with these mosaics. I ended up using the spaces in between as places for journal entries to just kind of process what was going on. This was sketched. While I was on the trip, I sketched it, but I worked from a photograph of a man draped in a flag, and I used a fan brush, dabbed in some paint just to indicate all the people behind him. And then this is just some images from our first apartment that Margot and I shared before the class actually started. Prior to going on the trip, I had made these little frames, or I call them vignettes. And what was fun was finding things to put in the vignettes. In this case, we were sitting in one of our favorite cafes in the morning, and I was doing some sketching on site there in the vignettes. And this is just recording sort of my travels one day off by myself, where I bought a dress and went to various places. The trip got started. We met up with the students, and the very first night went to this farmhouse called a masía, where we were also greeted by a burro who was just darling, and the stone dining room that was attached to this masía had all of these candlesticks. And our tour guide named Danny Adler, and he's got a company called Adler Marlowe Travels. He taught us the toast. That's appropriate in Catalonia. I loved the wild herbs and wild pomegranate trees. I'd never seen those before. That was pretty cool, and I did that sketch on site. And the leaves. And then you'll see on a few pages I have the road and the little van that we're in, just indicating that the group went to various places. The first place was a vineyard where we had this beautiful vista, and I loved learning about the wind called the tramuntana. And then we went to Besalú, which is a medieval town that's known for this arched bridge. And this was a demonstration I did on site with just watercolors, sort of a splash painting, and then the ink over it. And then I went back in later with just to sharpen up the edges there a little bit. This is on a separate paper. I had another whole sketchbook with watercolor paper that I worked in, and then I've glued a lot of those pages onto the pages of this handbook, including this one. I saw a man sitting under these arches that I liked in Besalú, took a photo, did this not on site. I did that from a photo. This is from memory. This is 2 pages of the room I stayed in the Museo, which was really fun. That was from memory. One day we went to the Dali home, and so that's from a photo, but the rest is from memory. And then I loved working on this gray toned paper. Again, this was working from a photograph. This is gray paper with gouache and pen. And I love the whites that you can get with the gouache. So that was fun. And I glued that in afterwards. This little boat was done on the white sketchbook paper that I glued in along with some of the collage elements. There's our little van. And then this was done on site in the other sketchbook, and I glued this in. And this was at the Dali house. There really is a tree growing out of a boat, and that was really fun to sit there and sketch on site. So throughout the book, you'll see I'm sketching from photographs, I'm sketching on site and from memory as well. I kind of go between all genres when I'm working in a travel journal. I had taken this photo of my students, and I love the shadows. So this is work directly on the page, not on a separate page and glued in, directly on the page, and that was the hotel that we had lunch in. And so I work a variety of ways. This is just from memory. Danny showed us how to pop the top of a cava bottle using a machete. That was pretty wild. And then I just needed a little writing to process some of the experiences that we were having. Back in Barcelona, we hit upon another demonstration with a different flag, similar colors. This is the view out our window. And then Margot and I did some more laundry. We had a great day sketching people in front of the cathedral in Barcelona. And these are just sort of memory sketches of what we did there. And then we went into the San Catarina market, and this is from some wrapping paper. Just I glued that on. So this is mostly from memory. We had this amazing perfect lunch with perfect soup, perfect egg, and perfect thyme sorbet. So those are drawn from memory. That's from memory. There's a little photo I cut up of Danny showing everybody how to drink from the porron. And that afternoon we met Carmen, an artist who works in Barcelona. She was wonderful, and that was really fun. And this is done from a photo. This I started in the Sagrada Familia, but added all the color in my studio after I got home looking at a photo. We went to a beautiful, amazing site. You can see those buildings there that was just filled with fabulous tile. I did not get a chance to sketch on site there, so I just glued that in as a collage piece. But I did get a chance to work on the clouds, looking out the view in my apartment on this toned paper. So that got glued in later. And our last night there, I also worked on the clouds, and there were military helicopters that really didn't interrupt our fun last night with a pika pika, which means cocktail party, at this fabulous boutique B&B. And I used a little photo to get everybody in there. That's Danny, our tour guide, and all the students. And then everybody left, and I had another couple days to myself in Barcelona, so I sketched directly in this journal. And this is just one of the many amazing buildings that you can find, and that's the rooftop. That was done in the other journal, and I glued that in. And then these are just some tags that I picked up at a little paper store, and I just did some journal entries on the backs of these tags. And now here's where the book gets out of order. This is from the Sagrada Familia also in that other sketchbook that I had with me. But I like the beginning sketches, so I cut them out and put them here. And you'll see the rest of this now is out of order, doesn't really necessarily make sense. That's just a postcard of some mosaics I loved. You know, there were some things that were just on my mind during the trip, and I decided I would record them and release them. But again, another Oy vey list stuck in there. And then this is my favorite page. I looked at each photo I'd taken of the students, and when I got back to Denver in my studio, I made little vignette sketches of each of my students. And I wasn't really upset that they're not exact portraits and they're not exact replicas of the individual person, but when I look at this, I sure can hear them laugh. So I'm happy that I got some expressions that make me think very fondly of each student, and of course our fearless leader, Danny. And that's pencil and white charcoal pencil on that same gray toned paper. And out of order, but a little watercolor that I started on site and finished looking at the photo. Same thing with this. I started this on site but finished it up looking at the photo back in my studio. That I mostly did on site, but added some details and put a map there to remember which plaza I was in. And then this was the market. I did the pencil sketch on site, added all the darks and lights in my studio. And then this I had done at the actual market and just added some more dark values when I got home. And this, clearly the paper was too long for my book, so I just folded that up to include that. And then this was my final Barcelona collage page. This is wrapping paper, and it had that great phrase on it, "Creation is life, life is creation." And then from Barcelona, I flew to New York and had a day to just hang out, and I was in the Guggenheim lobby and just had a good time drawing all the people. And the rest of the book is just some writing that I wanted to keep track of. Here's the itinerary for each day in Barcelona with my students. And since my journal is a little bit out of order, this back part here with the itinerary really helps me remember what each thing was. And then, of course, to be taken seriously, really. This is my packing list and what I actually didn't end up wearing, so I can remind myself next time to pack even lighter. And then just some more quick notes, and this was an experiment to see how the gouache worked differently from watercolor. If you would like to learn some techniques for your own travel journal efforts, I encourage you to take a look at the Craftsy class that I have where I teach a lot of these techniques. Expressive Pages, Journaling the Everyday is on craftsy.com, but you can also find a discount coupon if you take a look at my website, jcmamet.net, in the Shop Craftsy page. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. I'll be putting up lots more with different techniques on YouTube. Thanks.